Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today, we have an exciting guest on our show, one that is very well experienced and versed with Airbnb in a number of different ways. He is the author of the Airbnb Expert's Playbook. He is also an Airbnb host with multiple properties. And he's developed something really fascinating. Now, he's been working hard to come up with analytics that guests and people can use when looking for places to purchase that they want to rent out on Airbnb. So it's really phenomenal work. It's something that not a lot of people have touched upon. And for all you guys who are out there who are looking to maybe get your own property to use on Airbnb, this is going to be great for you. So it's going to be a terrific episode. And of course, we got the duo back, me and Jasper. Jasper, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys?
So Jasper is calling us in from Brazil, so I'm sure he's enjoying it down there in Rio. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today. It's Scott Shatford. Scott, how's it going?
Very good, guys. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And Scott is in LA. We actually recently met up and had a drink together, which was fun. And I always, of course, like doing that, but I especially like doing that with a fellow author on the topic of Airbnb, which was pretty cool. So, Scott, let's start off. We'll get to your book eventually, but why don't we start off with how you became acquainted with Airbnb?
Sure. Yeah, I think like a lot of Airbnb hosts, I got first involved while I was traveling myself. I took a pretty extended trip to Southeast Asia for a few months. And while I was away, a friend mentioned Airbnb to kind of recoup some of the costs while I was traveling. So while I was away, I had people coming and going and a friend managing my place. And before I knew it, I was making money in excess of my rent, and I ended up making, maybe a couple $1,000s a month that actually helped me pay for my travels. So when I got back from my travels and didn't have a corporate gig, I really started to tap into Airbnb on a bigger scale, starting with my one property, trying to optimize it, create a great listing, create great photos. And then I start building out additional properties. Every 3 or 4 months, I would add a new one. And, before you knew it, it was my full-time gig. And I was paying my bills and living the good life through renting my places out on Airbnb.
So the place that you first started with, did you rent that one or did you own it?
Yeah, no, it was a rental. It was a rental property in Santa Monica, California. Yeah, kind of a higher end apartment.
Did you let your landlord? Did you inform your landlord, or how did that work?
Yeah, at first, no. At first it really wasn't on my radar to do this full time, and I didn't do really anything to pass this through kind of the property management team. As I knew I was going to be building this out and doing this full time, I approached the property manager that I was with and was able to kind of secure a good relationship with them, by showing them the experience, the quality of the place, the cleanliness, the experience that some of the people had that had come through the apartment. I was really able to woo them on the attractiveness of this, and that this wasn't, some sort of scary strangers coming in to party and terrorize their apartments.
Right.
So before I knew it, I actually had these people, this property manager, calling me when they had additional properties that were coming up, or when somebody was moving out. They ended up starting to contact me about vacancies in their apartments.
Okay, and why didn't they just rent it out on Airbnb themselves? And did you share any of the profits with them, or did you just pay the standard rent?
Yeah, no, I didn't share any of the profits with them. And no, I just paid the standard rent. I think that people, it's just not their specialty. And people aren't maybe aware about what the opportunity is in terms of making 2 times standard long-term rents. But it's also just not their niche. And a lot of times in these large property management companies, people are just playing their role and they're not really starting to think outside of the box on how to maximize the revenues.
So the reason why I wanted to ask this is because we get a lot of questions from people who are currently renting, and they're wondering whether they should go to the landlord and be upfront about their ambition to start on Airbnb, or if they should not tell them and just kind of do it secretly. So what would your advice be to those people?
Yeah, it is a tough question, and every situation is pretty unique. I would think if somebody's currently doing it, it's a tough one. I would say that if you're okay with them not being all right with it, you should confront them. And by that I mean that if you're thinking about moving to a new place, or you're moving in with a girlfriend, or you're moving across the city for work, I mean, that's the perfect time to approach your property manager on keeping a previous place, or a place that you're okay with giving up, and approaching them with this. I would wait for a property manager to approach you about the subleasing efforts before I would go and approach them with it. Because the facts are that 99% of these people are not going to be okay with it at first glance. And it's going to take some selling and some relationship building before they become okay with it. So yeah, does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now, after you've been doing this for a while, how many properties do you personally rent out on Airbnb?
Yeah, so I have 5 properties right now, all in the same sort of third, area in Santa Monica, very condensed area within, a block of each other. And 5 is good for me. 5 is a good number. That's something that I can personally be in touch with. I can personally know everybody that's staying at my place. I can still monitor and go by there and do quality control. And I think that's a good number for me. And that's probably where I'll stop for right now. It does create 6 figures of profit on an annual basis. And I still feel like I can keep up the quality controls at that level.
And so with these properties, if you had to estimate, how much time per week does it take you to keep these up and running?
Yeah, for me personally, I've outsourced a lot of the actual kind of all the cleaning and all of the key exchange and all those things that can take a lot of time. So for me, it's really the communication with guests and the just confirming reservations and just the pre-booking conversations. So I'd say in general, with 5 properties, I'm probably spending maybe 5 hours a week managing the 5 properties.
Okay, and without getting into specific numbers of how much you're making, like what would you say the percentage is that you're netting after above and beyond the rent?
Yeah, I would say net. The margins are around 70%. So it's a 70% profit margin for me on my properties. And Santa Monica is a pretty stable tourist business, staycation market across the calendar. So it's not very seasonal, and I'm able to see that kind of returns pretty much month in, month out in the area.
Okay, so that sounds like you're doing pretty well, and I'm not surprised because I've seen the return that I'm making on my house, and I know that typically I think you'll be easily making 2 to 3 times your mortgage, and probably 2 times your rent in most cases. So that sounds like a reasonable estimate, and that's why it's incredible how much opportunity there is. But I want to get into your book now. Why did you decide to write a book?
Yeah, great question. I wrote the book I guess because I come from a really, a data-driven business intelligence background. I worked in corporate America for 10 years, running a business intelligence department, which basically mean I was analyzing, crunching numbers, and kind of creating for senior management what were the best decisions based off of, what all the analytics said. And it was super frustrating to me getting into this business with Airbnb is that there was absolutely no data out there that could tell me that enabling my instant book would increase my views and my conversions to bookings, or increasing my prices on the weekends would actually help me make more money. And so just the lack of information, lack of transparency that was available to kind of create kind of the perfect Airbnb business model wasn't there. Naturally I kind of set out to kind of create that and see if I could figure out what that looked like. So through lots of investigations and talking to other people, I developed over the year kind of where I was able to kind of optimize and squeeze as many pennies out of that single apartment as I could. And so I guess that's what my motivation was, to really kind of create true visibility, transparency into what strategies worked on Airbnb, and to kind of share that with all the other hosts out there that were, operating in the dark like I was.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same motivation that I had when I started with the writing of our book. Mainly like two things, like trying to help current Airbnb hosts, but also spreading the word about Airbnb, because I noticed there was a lot of people who weren't even aware of Airbnb's existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And I'm shocked that I talk to people all the time that still don't know about it. I talked to somebody that worked at VRBO maybe 3 months ago that didn't even know what Airbnb was. So I'm continually shocked that this isn't top of mind for people, especially, kind of our demographic, our age group that living in cities, metropolitan areas, that they don't know about this opportunity on helping them pay bills and making money while they're away. It seems like a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and while I was doing research for my book, I actually read your book. Well, I read every single book on Airbnb, and yours was definitely like one of the better ones. And if you search on Amazon for Airbnb, your book is actually the second one that shows up.
Just competition, huh? I used to be number one, man. All right, I'll reclaim my throne one of these days.
So sorry about that, Scott. But you know what? We're actually listed above the actual Airbnb application now. So
awesome. Yeah, that's great, guys. Yeah. No, it was good to see you guys' book come around. It really was as a much better kind of comprehensive view of what Airbnb is. Great stories about the people that are doing it. So it was good. Yeah, and I think your book was great. So kudos to you guys for doing a great book as well.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. And we're so happy to have you on because, like I said, it's great to connect to another author. You have 3 kind of categories of things that we could basically make each one into a show. With your current business, where you have 5 properties, which I know a lot more about, which is really interesting. Your book, of course. But we've got 1 episode, and I want to move it along to what I think is probably the most fascinating part of what you do in relation to Airbnb, and that is your work with analytics. So let me just hand it over to you, Scott, and you sort of tell us about this new project of yours.
Yeah, sure. So kind of like the same inspiration for my book, where I wanted to kind of create the perfect business model. And I did that through a lot of trial and error, right? Just trying this and then seeing if that worked, or how many views I'd get on my website if I tweaked that. So kind of the natural progression was to take it to the next level and really put some serious numbers behind it all. And
Scott, I'm sorry, let me back you up for a second. So can you tell us a little bit about what your website was doing, and just broad strokes, what is this? What are the analytics for?
Sure. So the website rentingyourplace.com was really set out to be kind of this the place to go to get the most current advice on how to host on Airbnb. with really great insights into it, and sell the book there. It evolved into now it's really a data analytics platform where anybody in the US can go and get stats about their neighborhood or any neighborhood in the US in terms of how many listings are in their neighborhood, how much people are charging, how many reviews do people have, what are the occupancy rates in your area, so forth and so on. So I've collected all of this millions of lines of data and have synthesized it into a great kind of city dashboard where anybody can go and see kind of what the presence of Airbnb is in their backyard.
So let's walk through the process. So let's say I live in Detroit, Michigan, okay, and I'm potentially interested in getting a place and renting it out. What would be my process using your site and using your data?
Sure. So you go to the AirDnA, Airbnb data and analytics section of the site. You would navigate to Detroit using the kind of Google Maps interface there. And then so you could click down into Detroit and you could see, I just did it right now, there's 153 active listings in Detroit. I can see now by looking at this page that the average price for an entire home in Detroit is $136 a night. You know, just taking that data point alone, you can ask yourself, like, if I'm going away for a week, over Christmas, I'm almost guaranteed or pretty sure that I can make $136 a night while I'm gone. And a lot of people, find that fascinating that people are willing to pay that type, those types of dollars for their place. So that's the first and foremost what people can go and see. Also, what they can do from here is look at all the competing properties in the area, right? So if you live at the downtown area, you can actually zoom in onto a map and see every property that we've been able to track on Airbnb over the last 6 months that is in your area. So you can get down to a very pinpoint specific analysis of all of the properties that are close to you and how they're performing. So I can see, this guy's charging $100 a night, this guy's charging $125, he's got 20 reviews. So you get a much more accurate depiction of kind of what your opportunity is if you're going to list your place on Airbnb.
And it even goes further than that, because I'm looking at a report about San Francisco here, and I can even see what percentage of people have different amenities. For example, I'm looking at the cable TV. 45% have cable TV, 7% have a gym, like all these details. So I'm really impressed about the sort of all the different details that you can provide. I'm just curious, like, was it easy to get all this data?
No, it's not easy to get all the data. It took a lot of months of trying to figure out how to get it all, first of all, and then how to compile it and report on it in a dynamic way. So luckily, I was able to work with a really kind of smart engineer and database guy that was able to help me, help my vision come to life here. But yeah, no, it's tricky to get all this data.
And you also offer a private Airbnb consulting service on your website.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. What I really found is that there's a lot of people, property managers and others that are managing, 20 plus properties on Airbnb. And a lot of these people are really looking at how to optimize their listings, optimize their pricing, adjust their reservation settings to maximize the performance of the properties. So I've been working mostly with some of these larger scale property managers that are using Airbnb, in addition to the VRBOs and HomeAways of the world, to optimize their Airbnb listings. So I will help them with anything from the copywriting on their page to the quality of their photos or the captions or whatever it may be, the advanced pricing options to help them realize the most money for each of their properties.
And so what about right, so you're working with kind of these big guys who have big shops, and then what about for people? And by the way, I asked about Detroit for a reason, because that's where I'm from, and I'm actually thinking about investing in some properties in the Detroit area. But so this is a bit of a selfish question. But the point is like, you can take your analytics, right, as someone like me who's looking at a potential property to buy, and use that to select the optimal area, right? The optimal place and the optimal type of unit that would most likely lead to the highest level of profitability. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's definitely one usage of the tool. That you can go in, drill down to a particular zip code, and that's kind of the lowest level that we'll get to. But you can run a zip code specific report that will show you what the occupancy rates are for everybody in that zip code. So you can see, people are seeing a 78% occupancy rate, are charging this amount of money, and I even provide now kind of what we think the estimated revenue is on each property on the map. So that, when you're making a decision on what vacation property I should buy, this will help you figure out kind of cash flow, what you can be expecting to make on it as a vacation rental on Airbnb.
And to me, that's the cool part, because I know I'm actually planning to use this myself when I go back to Michigan in a couple weeks, because I want to check out some properties there and I want to use this. So to me, that's really cool. And I know we've had other guests and people that we've met that ask about, hey, is there a way, do you guys have information on how we can sort of go from city to city or place to place and figure this out? And it's really cool that you've actually created something like that. What percentage of the people that are using your products are people like me, would you say?
It's a good question, actually. I think I've really been trying to target the current Airbnb host that is trying to maximize, the performance of their properties. I haven't gotten into, and I think it's a smaller space, is the people that are currently looking to purchase vacation rentals for the sole purpose of renting out on Airbnb. So I haven't really been marketing towards that audience, but the data is really, really powerful for that audience. So I've been noticing more of that traffic trickling in as of late. The exact numbers of that, I don't really know. But it's definitely where I'm seeing a lot of excitement around it all right now, because there's lots of other ways you can bring in data to this about, current hotel prices and occupancy, about what the price of an average apartment is in the area. And you can create kind of really dynamic information about pinpoint where the best opportunity is all across America for Airbnb investment opportunities. And so that's definitely something that we'll be working on, in the coming months as well.
Yeah, I think you're targeting the right audience, because I'm hearing this more and more, where people ask me, "Hey, I think I want to invest in some property, and it seems like Airbnb is a good option to monetize the house." I think people are getting more and more aware of the opportunity that is out there. I was actually speaking to a friend of mine earlier today, and he asked me what I think is a good neighborhood in Amsterdam to buy a house, for the sole purpose of listing it on Airbnb. So he would be a very good client for you. The only problem is he wants to buy in Amsterdam, and you're only doing US, aren't you?
Yeah, we started doing it in the US, really just testing it all, really just trying to see what the interest level is. Obviously gathering all this data is kind of, it's a lot of effort. And so, as that, over half the listings on Airbnb are abroad. So we're really rolling this out kind of on a test basis and seeing, the interest level. And if it's high, there's no reason why we can't turn this on in select markets like London or Paris or Amsterdam or wherever else. So I'm definitely looking at people that are interested in their local areas, if it's international, and there's no reason that we can't turn this on in select cities or countries.
All right, and Scott, for people who are interested in checking this out, what is the price points?
Yeah, the price points, we set up a price. The price points are typically between $10 and $100 for a report. we base the price based off the number of listings in a given city. So obviously smaller cities are going to be cheaper than the larger New York's, San Francisco's, Los Angeles of the world. So we wanted to make this really affordable. And we also wanted to make people really get specific data. So instead of buying a report for all of Los Angeles, we really wanted to show people that getting specific, getting targeted about a particular neighborhood is going to give you much more relevant information. So if you're buying a specific zip code, the price should only be about $10 to $20 in most circumstances. And that will give you just a lot better actionable data on what your competing properties are, how you can stand out against the current competition, and just more relevant pricing information about what's going on in your neighborhood.
Cool. And can you give us again the website where people can go and purchase your product?
Yeah, sure. So the website is rentingyourplace.com. And then there's a link to the product, which we're calling AirDnA. And so once you go to the AirDnA section of the site, you can then navigate to your particular city and buy the reports there.
Okay, that's great. And is there any other places where people can go to find more about you or your book?
I've really used rentingyourplace.com as kind of the main hub for all of my activities. So I have a blog there. I share some free information about Airbnb, which I call Airbnb 101, and all of my analytics are there. So that's really where I'm focusing on keeping all of this information and all these updates about what I'm up to are at that site.
Awesome. So everybody who's interested in getting some data in the US, go to rentingyourplace.com. It's pretty sophisticated data, so I recommend you check it out. And with that, we're at the end of another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. As always, every Monday and every Thursday, we have a new episode. And if you want to learn more about Airbnb hosting, you can also go to getpaidforyourpad.com. The resources mentioned in this episode will be on our podcast section of our blog. So it's getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. And there you'll find all the episodes that we've released so far. And of course, you can also get the first 3 chapters of our book for free on the website too. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.